I am your host, Jeff Hartman, joined by Bryan Davis as we break it all down for you. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers trading with the Miami Dolphins, a blockbuster trade at the end of June. Bryan, what's going on?
Hey, Jeff, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for letting me jump on in, and I'm elated.
Well, I can't say that. I don't know how I feel, if I'm being honest.
I'm with you.
You're what?
I'm with you.
Okay, so let's start off with like the knee-jerk reaction. What was your knee-jerk reaction when you saw just the trade? And first and foremost, to give everyone a rundown of exactly what happened and what transpired. You had the Steelers announce that they traded for Jaylen Ramsey, and then it became known that the trade was much more than that. It involved a player-for-player trade. Minkah Fitzpatrick goes back to the team that drafted him out of Alabama. Jonnu Smith goes to the Steelers, and a fifth-round pick and a seventh-round pick swap with the Dolphins getting the fifth-round pick in 2027 caps things off. So first, let's start off with the trade for Jaylen Ramsey, because that's the wave. What was that first wave reaction for you?
Wow, they are in it to win it.
Okay, fair enough. I was hesitant because I was like, okay, I know the contract. I wrote the article for SteelCurtainNetwork.com when I just asked, does it make sense? And he has a lot of void years on his deal. He's getting paid a lot of money. And so I was like, all right, well, what in the heck what does this look like? So then it was maybe 5 minutes later, the second wave comes, and then you find out Minkah Fitzpatrick's going to Miami. What was your thoughts then?
That's where I was like, oh, there's the rub. And that's where, that's where I'm not sure what to think with you. But as things continue to happen, I was thinking that, all right, I was thinking about the Juan Thornhill factor that could be a possibility here. But I was also thinking of the fact that all this praise of Minkah the last couple weeks and everything after the last 2 years of a lot of people, questioning what he was doing, I was starting to think that maybe it was posturing by the Steelers organization to talk about how good he looked. But as far as it goes, you got to give to get. And I think at that point in time, I was thinking, all right, I'm still with it, but whoa, it knocked my socks off. And I think, was I the one who found it real quick and said, whoa, wait a second, it's this, and I put it back? The tweet's coming later, or was that Jonnu Smith thing?
You found the Jonnu Smith. I was the one that saw the Minkah Fitzpatrick part. And then you're like, well, Jonnu Smith is coming too. It's like, so this all happened. And to be completely honest, I was in the middle of working out at the gym with my daughter. And all of a sudden my phone's buzzing and I'm like, oh, crap. So I wrote 2 articles in between sets at the gym. So I'm proud of myself for that.
That's superstar stuff. That's Jaylen Ramsey stuff.
Sure, there you go. Kenneth, he asked this question. Can you recite the trade compensation again? So it's Jaylen Ramsey comes to Pittsburgh. Minkah Fitzpatrick goes to Miami. That's part 1. Part 2, Jonnu Smith goes to Pittsburgh. The Steelers send a 2027 fifth-round pick. The Dolphins send the Steelers a 2027 seventh-rounder. That's the way I heard it. Am I accurate, Bryan? Is that what you heard as well?
That's absolutely what I know.
Okay. So let's talk about what the Steelers get first, and then we'll talk about what they gave up. They get Jaylen Ramsey. Now, I have a good friend of mine, and he's a Dolphins fan, and he said, listen, if you would have watched the Dolphins last year, Jaylen Ramsey was not impressive. He said he got beat a lot. He looked unmotivated. It happens. He said, but then again, when players leave the Dolphins, they typically do well. And so Jaylen Ramsey, though, I think does give the Steelers an added versatility in their secondary. When you think about Darius Slay, Joey Porter Jr., you throw in Jaylen Ramsey, the need there is going to be lesser than what it was. And so I think the cornerback room bumps up significantly. Jonnu Smith coming with the tight end room. There's some people in our Slack channel. I know Shannon White. He is someone that said that he thinks this essentially is the Steelers wide receiver too. That they've addressed that other part of their passing game. He's dynamic. He's more of a playmaker. He's not even your Pat Freiermuth type of tight end. I like what the Steelers received. I honestly do. I think their defense got better. Their pass rush got better because the secondary is going to be better. I think the defense, and I said this before they even got Jaylen Ramsey, their defense is better in 2025 on paper than it was in 2024. And I stand by that after this first part. I like what Jonnu Smith brings to the offense in terms of giving Aaron Rodgers another versatile weapon. It's not the field stretcher people were hoping for, but they kind of have that in Calvin Austin III. If they want a burner, they can stretch the field. Bryan, what the Steelers got? What's your takeaway?
This makes everything better on both sides of the ball, like you said. Now, if we are we talking about Jonnu here, or are we still talking about
those players the Steelers got?
All right, so I'm going to start back with Jaylen Ramsey, and I kind of feel that situation in Miami, and I agree with what your buddy said, but I think that is a very toxic environment. I think that Coach Mike McDaniels is one of those guys that he stirs a lot of pots in a lot of ways that it's not exactly, it's a chaotic environment in Miami from what I've been seeing. That's a lot better team than really the way they performed the last couple years. Now, I know they've had injuries with Tua, they've had all those problems, but really I could see the fact that Jaylen Ramsey is going to a situation where he could tell they're all in. I don't know if you saw what Ramsey put out. He put out on social media, "I'm breaking my own news." And it was a 45-second vignette about the Steelers defense, steel sharpening steel, and they get the Steelers now add a lockdown corner that's not here for himself, but just to make the Steelers better or something like that. And it was a professional vignette. It was great. And they ended it with, "And the Steelers just got sharper." And it was amazing. And so you could tell that, just like the Aaron Rodgers situation, you could tell that they're all in. This is probably last hurrahs for some guys. I'm not saying for Ramsey, but they're feeling what Pittsburgh is building right now is an opportunity to at least put all their chips in on the table. And having to get rid of Minkah, that's what they had to do for that. Now, who does it make better? Right away, it makes Joey Porter better. It actually makes Darius Slay better, too. The one thing that it does on defense, you mentioned that the pass rush, you mentioned all that. I don't think there's really anything that you lose. You don't really hurt yourself by adding that extra corner, because you have guys that can play center field. I mentioned the Thornhill equation in there too. So, but I like the fact that Joey Porter is going to be freer to not have all the onus on him. And now that's the same with Slay. They have the means to move some guys around. And I think a guy that doesn't get talked about a lot is the defensive backfields coach who came back from the Raiders, Gerald Alexander.
Yep.
And he was, of course, we always joke about me following the Raiders for work, but what he did with those defensive backs last year, that was a really good room until everybody left via free agency at the end of 2024. So he makes them better as well. On the other side of the ball, I was thinking the same thing. I did not know that Shannon mentioned that, but for me, it's, this ends their search. And if you look back on Arthur Smith's offense, you always seem to see wide receiver number one getting the majority of the catches. Then the next two are tight ends. Then you have other guys still getting balls. There's going to be a lot of balls to go around here, but it does make Austin better. If you catch him in the seam, he's gone. And they're going to find a way to do that a whole lot more. They moonballed him so much last year, they wasted his talents. They played him in the absolute wrong way. So I love working with Jeff because I just realized what I said. But as far as that, to keep up with the trend, now the Steelers have the biggest swinging set now in the locker room.
I taught middle school for 16 years, man. You can never say balls that many times in a paragraph.
And you're in athletics too, so you know.
Yeah, you learn to be very specific. I need everyone to go grab a football and then head over to that line. That's what you say. You don't say go grab your balls and head over. You learn those lessons. All right, so we talked a lot about what the Steelers got in this trade. We're going to talk about what they lost. And I think that's the other half of this, which weighs heavy on my mind. And we'll talk about that right after this break. If you're watching live on any platform, we're not going anywhere. For those on the audio side, we'll be right back after this break. All right, we are back, and we talked a lot about what the Steelers received in this trade with the Miami Dolphins in terms of Jaylen Ramsey, a cornerback. We talked about Jonnu Smith, a tight end. And that's good stuff. Like, I like those moves, but you can't have a trade like this without giving up something. And I was shocked, and I still wouldn't be shocked, in my opinion. I wouldn't be shocked if the Steelers reworked Jaylen Ramsey's deal. He has void years built into it because he redid his deal prior to last season. It doesn't look good. So I hope I trust Omar Khan's going to be doing something. But at the same time, I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, okay, what did they give up? What did they give up? What did they give up? They send Minkah Fitzpatrick back to the team that drafted him out of Alabama, and that was in 2019, correct? Wasn't that the 2019 draft? And that was, he kind of fell out of favor with the coaching staff. And so I'm not going to poo-poo this. Like, there's a lot of Steeler fans right now that are saying, oh, Minkah's replaceable. He hasn't played well. And I'm not disagreeing with the fact that he hasn't played well the last 2 years, at least in the splash play department. What I'm not about to do is to just say that he is easily replaceable. What do the Steelers have now at safety? Well, we know they have Deshaun Elliott, who just signed a new 3-year contract, a 2-year extension just a little over a week ago. They have Juan Thornhill. Hey, huge boost to Sebastian Castro, by the way.
Yes.
The undrafted rookie out of Iowa. I mean, I'm not sure if he's the answer for anything, but his chances of making the team just went up exponentially.
And he doesn't get thrust into a starting role.
No, but now that room is thinner. And so I think let's talk about Minkah leaving. He was great in run support, a great tackler. From a teammate standpoint, he seemed to do things the right way. He called out players who didn't seem to want to do the hard work for it. I don't know what to think about this. I'm torn. I was even saying to my daughter as we left the gym, I can't believe they got rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick. I know he cost them $25 million, and that's how they're able to make this deal with Jaylen Ramsey, and it was a really big cap hit for this year, but man, I can't believe they traded Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's insane. Brian, make it make sense.
It's hard to make sense, but you've got to think of a couple things here. And the first thing I'm thinking of is you did mention that he would call out players. He also laid out players, too. He wasn't afraid to crack one.
True.
And, just ask Chase Claypool, and I think he was aiming for George Pickens last year, too. But, and I cannot confirm that. That's just off the top of my brain. But there is some sentiment out there right now that the talk last year about 10 people doing one thing and another person doing another, a lot of people thought that was Dante Jackson, but there's some sentiment out there that's just surfacing again today that was aimed towards Minkah Fitzpatrick. I do not know if that's true. That's just a theory that's being busted about. That's part of the narrative. I don't know whether that's to make people feel better about the deal that you just made, but he was a vocal leader on this team. You always talked about the big three on all 3 tiers of the defense. And you had Cam, you had TJ, and then you had Minkah. You don't have that just big superstar back there. And Minkah did a lot of the dirty work. And that's a lot of what people forgot about was how much cleanup and how much he took on that others were lapsing on. So I really think that's a big part of this equation here, Jeff, that you're losing some leadership on the back end, but you feel that Deshaun Elliott could be the guy that could step up and be a leader, but you're hoping Juan Thornhill could go ahead and step in. But then I saw a tweet from, I believe it was Nick Fairbaugh, that put out something that said, hey, just don't watch the 2024 tape on Thornhill.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all. But again, the Steelers had to be comfortable with something, whether that's Thornhill and Elliott, or whether they see a safety out there that they think they might still be able to acquire. I'm not sure what that is and what the plan is in that regard, but they clearly felt confident and comfortable with parting ways with Minkah Fitzpatrick. And this is not a disgruntled player. He was at every phase of OTAs. He was at mandatory minicamp. Aaron Rodgers said on the Pat McAfee show how he loved talking with Minka Fitzpatrick because he has such a high football IQ. All of this stuff is fact. And so I can only imagine Minka's being probably floored and just shocked by the fact that he's being shipped to Miami. I can't think for the life of me that the Steelers are done in terms of making moves. Because let's talk about what else they lost. A 2027 fifth-round pick. They have not given away any of their 2026 draft capital. They could have up to, not guaranteed, but up to 12 picks in this upcoming draft. Bryan, what do you make of that? They're not drafting 12 players if that's how many picks they have. They are not going to take 12 players next year. But the fact that they still have all of that draft capital, do you think they're done, or do you think there's more moves to be made?
I don't necessarily know if there's more moves to be made for 2025. They may be done, but if they do want to help out if they do want to get another swing tackle for depth, you might see something like that. But that's not a blockbuster move. That's not a shapeshifter. I think you're right. They could probably be eyeing somebody at safety. Now, the news coming out of Miami is that Miami's not done. Now they're going to replace Jonnu Smith and they're looking for tight ends. So, but going back to the trade, and you said it, that the Steelers know something, because you just don't on a knee jerk say, hey, but what, you said Minka? Oh yeah, we'll throw him in. That's no problem. No, right. There's a lot of deliberation when you do something like that. So I don't see a wide receiver 2 coming in now. If they do, it's a free agent. You're bringing somebody in with age on them. You're bringing in somebody that is flapping in the wind or on the couch right now. But I don't really see you making that much of any deals at this point. So I'm really excited for what this whole thing means. It means that you're not afraid to make moves. You're not afraid to bring in veteran talent. I think about something that, you were so young when this happened, but in baseball, the San Diego Padres in 1984, they decided, we've got Tony Gwynn, we've got a young basis, let's just go for it. And they started making trades. Greg Nettles, everybody remembers Greg Nettles, and Steve Garvey. And they brought all these veterans in, and they called him Trader Jack. And it got them to the World Series. Got Kirk Gibson in against Detroit, but they still got there by bringing in this veteran talent. The year before, the Phillies did it by bringing in all these veterans, and they got to the World Series as well. They lost the World Series too to Baltimore. But this is not a baseball podcast, but the reason I bring this up is when you bring in, it's not bad to bring in veterans with age on them if they're the right veterans. Now, the narrative that you're going to see on social media, and we're already seeing it, they're showing all the ages of all these guys that they acquired, all these ages of the team in general. And then you got to think, though, there's a nice 27 next to DK Metcalf. So they're not killing themselves right now. They're not doing what the Penguins are doing, holding on to all their old talent when they could have traded them years ago. So this is so much of a different situation. And I'm talking about every sport but football now. So let's get back to football, Jeff. I think this is just saying that, hey, you're saying about Baltimore, you're saying about Buffalo, you're saying about Kansas City. We're here, and we're not going away. That's what the Steelers are saying.
Well, I'll say this. I was shocked. Minka Fitzpatrick, to me, was one of those foundational pieces of the team. When people talked about, hey, who's the core? You would say Cam Hayward. You'd say TJ Watt. You'd say Minka Fitzpatrick. The fact that he got shipped out and clearly probably had no idea that it was about to happen. I don't know what this means for TJ Watt. Don't take that the wrong way. I'm not saying they're going to trade TJ Watt. But at the same time, Omar Khan is at least willing to say, well, what are you going to offer me for a player like Minka Fitzpatrick's caliber? He's an all-pro player, hasn't been that way in the past few years. Interesting, though, to think about what repercussions this might have, a ripple effect, so to speak, and how they do business. But I looked it up. Here's, according to Spot Rack, the available safeties on the market right now. So you have Marcus Williams, formerly of the Ravens. He's an 8-year vet. He's 28 years old. Justin Simmons is a name that's being brought up a lot in the live chat. He's 31 years old. He's got 9 years of experience, played with Atlanta last year. Jordan Whitehead, he's from Tampa Bay, 7 years experience. He's 28. Julian Blackmon from Indianapolis, only a 5-year vet, 26 years old. Quandre Diggs from Tennessee last year, 10-year vet, 32.4. That's his age. Jordan Poyer, free safety, played with Miami last year. Chuck Clark, he's played for the Jets last year. He's 30 years old. He's got 8 years of experience. There are some names there. More than I thought. Von Bell, we know him well. He played in Cincinnati last year. He's 30 years old. Ronnie Harrison. So they have some options if they choose to go the free agent safety route to try and address some of this stuff. We'll have to see. We will have to see. But it's really interesting to see exactly what they're doing and how they're doing things. And they still have all of that 2026 draft capital. I feel like they're not done. I don't think that they're going to be done making moves. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a big time trade, but they might have an acquisition of some kind. But let's wrap this up, Bryan. What are your final thoughts?
They're loading the guns, but they're also, like you just said, they're also putting stuff aside to do other things. They are not strapped. They are not, when you say that you're putting all the chips on the table and you're all in, that doesn't mean that you're sacrificing the future. And usually that's what it means. So at this point, no, I'm not worried about a thing. One of the things that we didn't really talk about is you're talking about all the mess that's with Jaylen Ramsey's contract, but you no longer have Minka's contract either. So with all of that, it kind of becomes a little bit of a wash there. So they're not hamstringing themselves here either. If they just trade for Jaylen Ramsey for picks and Jonnu Smith for picks, they're bringing in all that contract. So they dumped a little bit of contract too. And they also reworked a deal with Jonnu Smith, something that I don't think we really talked about. I don't know exactly, or they're reworking a deal with Jonnu Smith. So I don't know if that means an extension. And I almost think it does, but I don't know completely about that.
All right. Yeah, I think this is a trade that it's easy for us here to say as Steeler fans, oh, the Steelers won the trade. Maybe not. We'll see. I mean, if Minka goes down to Miami and has a career year, almost like what we were used to seeing when they acquired him in 2019, and let's say Jonnu Smith doesn't do much and Jaylen Ramsey doesn't have a great year, can we really say that? We can't say winners and losers right now of the trade until we actually see how they play out and see what the Steelers do. But they are definitely, like Bryan said, they're all in. I want to tell everyone that's listening to make sure you check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com. We'll have all this information for you right there in one spot. We'll be covering it from all different angles, from salary cap perspectives to commentary. SteelCurtainNetwork.com, and make sure you check out all of our podcasts tonight. The Steelers Hangover, Daniel J. and Shannon White will be live on our YouTube channel, so make sure you check that out. But that does it for us. Bryan, thanks for your time, man. We'll talk soon. Take it easy.